Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where my guest is Buddy Amoroso. He's currently a Metro Councilman here in the City of Baton Rouge, and he's running for the Louisiana House as a state representative for District 66. He's going to talk to us about what his most important goals are. Number one is education, also infrastructure, and most importantly is not raising your taxes. He is one of the initiators of tax busters. So join us on the next Legal Lines with Buddy Amoroso.
It's time now for Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith with a Legal Lines tip for you. If you have to hire a lawyer, and I hope you don't, but if you do, hire a lawyer that you like, that you trust, and who specializes in your area of need. In these days, with all the laws we have, lawyers for the most part now specialize. They specialize in contracts, defense, business, personal injury, all kinds of areas of the law. So when you interview with a lawyer, ask him, does he specialize in the area of your need? Has he tried the cases? Has he been successful? And of course, how does he charge you? Is his fee hourly? Is it a percentage of the case if he recovers? What exactly does he charge? So my Legal Lines tip from me, Locke Meredith, to you is, if you have to hire a lawyer, hire one you like, you trust, and who specializes in your area of need.
This has been Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. I'm pleased to have on the show today Buddy Amoroso. He is a Metro Council member and he's running for the Louisiana House of Representatives. Buddy, it's great to have you on the show.
Well, I'm glad to be here, Locke.
Well, very much appreciate you doing the show. Let's kind of dive in. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a Baton Rouge boy. I was born and raised in Baton Rouge. I went to Broadmoor High, graduated.
Lehigh right here.
Oh, Lehigh, class of 1975. Went away for college, came back, and been making my living here in Baton Rouge and raising my family. Now I have two granddaughters that I'm really proud, really excited, proud of.
You were telling me earlier that you and I think you said Mr. Dent started Tax Busters. Is that correct?
Yeah, I look at Fred Dent as one of my mentors in life, and Fred and Elizabeth and a couple other people. We started Tax Busters way back in like 1996.
And your profession is as a real estate broker?
No, I'm not a real estate broker. We do property management, where
we
own and manage primarily residential, commercial properties.
But you've been involved in the political world, I guess, to some degree on a local level, for sure, because you've been on the airport board and some other boards? Yeah,
I was on the airport commission. I was on the alcohol beverage control board. So I've been active in politics, and
I saw the Boy Scouts too.
Boy Scouts. I am currently on the rolls with the Boy Scouts as an assistant scout master. I had the great privilege of being the scout master for Troop 169. Here in our district. So,
been involved in the community for a while then.
Absolutely, yes.
And please express to your son how much we appreciate his service to our nation.
Well, my son, he's on the USS George Washington, and it's going to be our first Christmas without him. So it's kind of a sad, happy time for us.
And I see that he's involved in the medical profession in that sense.
He is. Through the Boy Scouts, believe it or not.
Really?
He's an Eagle Scout and got involved in the EMS with them, and then became a corpsman in the Navy, and just has a real gift towards the medical aspect.
Fantastic. My father served on the aircraft carrier in the Navy too. It's an honorable profession, no doubt about it. We very much appreciate everybody who serves. Let's talk a little bit about why you decided to go into the Metro Council, because currently you're a Metro Councilman, I think District 8.
District 8, exactly.
And it was interesting, I was reading some stuff and it indicated, you never really planned on doing that.
Right.
Explain to the folks why you got involved.
Well, I have always been involved in community issues, primarily a lot of the taxation issues through Tax Busters. And you always look, is it best to be on the outside, or should you be on the inside? My predecessor was Mike Walker, and Mike asked me to run for office when he was term limited.
Great councilman, great mayor pro tem.
Absolutely, absolutely. And really, Baton Rouge has been so good to me and our family, and I felt that was a time to give back. I have two granddaughters, I have kids, and I want them to be able to grow up here in Baton Rouge. I enjoy my children, and I want them to be able to stay in Baton Rouge, and I have to go outside the city, outside the state, to be able to get a good job. And And I want them to have the type of quality of life I had growing up
Agreed.
in Baton Rouge.
I'm 100% on board with you in that regard. Explain to the folks what the purpose of Tax Busters was, because I think that's going to appeal to a lot of folks.
Right.
If it's all about what it sounds like it's about.
Well, you know, we were literally, the school board back in 1996 was proposing a $1 billion tax.
1B?
1 billion. Yeah, huge. It was one of the largest taxes in the really the history of the state. I get a phone call from a friend of mine in Ruston, and he's talking to me about it. And so I get off the telephone, and my wife said, well, who is that? And I said, well, that's Walter. And she said, well, what does he want? He says, he wants to know what I'm going to do about this tax. And my wife looks at me, and she said, well, what are you going to do about the tax? And I said, I don't know.
You got drafted, huh?
I got drafted, and I had a little email list. So I put out, I said, let's get together and talk about this tax. And a few people showed up, and I got on a radio show, and then I got connected with an old friend of mine, Elizabeth Dent, and her husband, Fred Dent, got involved in it. And it just really was a very organic community event that a lot of people got involved in, and it was showing a lot of the insanity of this
tax.
Huge, massive tax. And the funny thing about it was I mean, we all agreed, knew that they needed some new schools in Baton Rouge, but they were able to come back after this and pass a much smaller tax, wasn't a billion, and it was a tax that was on an annual, well, not on a like every 5-year, 10-year renewal basis.
So it wasn't guaranteed into the rest of our lives.
Exactly. So we were really even proud the way everything turned out with some of the new schools that were built. One thing I learned from Fred was that taxes are a need that communities have, and that public safety is probably one of the most important items. So we never opposed like fire taxes and police, taxes, but we tried to look at some of the foolishness that government does so well. And those are the type of taxes that we look to go ahead and try to bust.
And so the goal of that was to make sure whatever taxes citizens were requested to pay, that they be spent wisely and efficiently.
And two, we also we didn't like these secret tax elections that in the middle of the summer or in the middle of the spring.
And what was the reason for that?
Well, because we felt that we should have a broad voter turnout. And typically in these special elections, you have between 5 and 15% of the voters turn out. So literally, a minuscule percentage of the population is rendering law. But the whole population is going to have to pay the tax.
Right.
So we wanted, that was one thing that we worked on back even 1996 was having taxes, tax elections on major tax events, and we were able to work with some fine councilmen back then, like Mike Futrell, to be able to help to get that passed.
Well, that's excellent. Tell me about your kind of guiding morals or principles as it relates to being now in the public world as a representative. I mean, what is liberal, conservative, right, left?
Yeah. Well, I love to what I tell people is number one, I'm a Christian. Number two, I'm a conservative, and number three, I'm a Republican, in that order. But then my guiding principle, I am a free market person. I think that let the markets operate, let government get out of the way, and that the markets usually get it right, and that we don't have to depend on.
Because it has competition.
It has competition. I think competition is the great, and that's what I try to do. I try to bring just a common sense approach to government, a business sense, because I am a businessman. I'm the CEO of a Prime Properties, property management company, and just try to bring some common sense to government. So am I safe in stating then that you believe in maximum individual freedom with minimum government, but it requires maximum individual responsibility? Absolutely, yes. Mm-hmm. And with the government we do have, that it be operated efficiently and effectively, and it be accountable? Yeah, let me give you an example. The cat tax, the bus tax. Yeah, I was not we were opposed to that. I worked with tax busters, and unfortunately, the way it was gerrymandered, we were not able to defeat it. But I get on the council, the $60 million tax, and the board was in complete chaos. I don't know if you remember. I remember. Yeah. I mean, there were some board members that looked like they were going to go to jail. I mean, it was terrible chaos. I said, okay, I was opposed to the tax, but we have to do something about it. The people spoken is $60 million. And so we helped put up regulations on how to choose the board, how to get politics out of the board. So now I think we have the CATS board, even though I'm still opposed to the tax this time of year especially. At least it can be run efficiently and effectively. Exactly. All right, we'll continue this on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines. My guest, Buddy Amoroso, running for the Louisiana House of Reps. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where we're going to talk about the law and you and why it should matter to you what a law is. You know, in America, in our cities, in our states, in our federal governments, they all pass thousands, hundreds of thousands of laws, regulations every single year, and they either directly or indirectly affect you. That's why you need to know what a law is. It's an exercise of power over people, places, and things. So join us on the next Legal Lines, where knowledge is power. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Pleased to have on the show today for the first time Buddy Amoroso. He's a Metro Councilman and now is running for the Louisiana House of Representatives. Buddy, let's dive back in. You were talking about kind of your guiding principles as a public servant, and primarily God, conservative, Republican in that order, in wanting maximum government efficiency and effectiveness. What does that look like if you're elected as representative for District 66?
Well, you know, Locke, as I said, I believe in the free markets. And our education system has failed us.
Absolutely.
I mean, you look at the public education, and it's not just last year or 10 years. It goes back to really starting when I was in school, back in the 70s. So, I mean, it's a 50-year-old problem. We have a situation now, we have a monopoly on education with the school boards and with the teachers' unions. I believe that we need to bring in some free market principles, let competition work. Now, luckily we have now charter schools in Louisiana.
And the voucher system.
The voucher systems, but we need to expand that. I believe in smaller school districts. You know, that's why I was in favor of a Southeast school district in southeast part of Baton Rouge.
Which kind of morphed into the St. George community.
Exactly. But when you get these things, when you get these entities on a smaller basis, and you start giving parents choice. I believe that it should be parental choice. Right now in Baton Rouge, your choices are either public school or private school. Private school is very expensive, and you and I both made the decision to put our children into private schools. I had my children go out to Bethany,
and there's a good reason, because if you do not get an education, you are not going to succeed in this society, and you cannot get a quality education as it stands right now in the public system.
Absolutely. Locke, I don't know if something I'm going to tell you about myself. You're talking education is, when I was younger, not even younger now, I am dyslexic. And I also
explain to the folks what that means.
Dyslexic is a reading disorder where you skip words,
read them backwards almost sometimes.
Sometimes that was the classic definition, but it's any type of reading problems have now been called dyslexia.
Okay.
Which the now Senator Cassidy has his wife has started Key Academy here in Baton Rouge, which is a charter school.
And that's Dr. Laura.
Dr. Laura, exactly. That's why I was a big proponent of the Key Academy, but and also I had a speech impediment, so. Where my mom, I always ask my mother, well, was that money spent wise on speech therapists? And
so far so good.
I hope so. But
so you understand the importance of education.
Absolutely. I was working very hard. I was able to get through high school, go through college, get my college degree, have a BS in business administration. So I see that we need to educate the whole, not just the elites that can go to certain schools, but people like myself. Even when I was going to the public school system, they had good speech therapists and everything.
I mean, I graduated. The public school system was adequate and in some cases great in our day. But as Senator Elbert Guillory said in a previous show, the education we got back then is superior to the education the kids get now, and we're 50, 40 years down the road.
Exactly. And I know Senator Guillory's a little bit older than I am, and I would imagine the education he had in the public system was a little bit better than what I had.
And segregated, too.
Segregated, exactly.
Poor black segregated schools, and it's still superior to what.
So I mean, that shows a lot of things. It shows that pumping money into the system is not always the fix of it. But I think what it does show, what we need to get back to, is that this is a parental choice, and that education has to be a parental choice, and that's where the competition comes into.
Well, and let's point out too, Buddy, that a child is required to go to whatever school the school board says they have to go to, depending on where they live.
Exactly.
And if that school's an F school, pretty much too bad, or a low performing school, pretty much too bad, and they're condemned to their address, their zip code, quality of education, and the voucher system, charter system changes that.
Absolutely. And, you know, there again, too, I mean, I've been working with helping get some businesses come to Baton Rouge, and they always talk about the STEM, you know, curriculum, the science, the technologies, the maths. To me, what I think is wonderful is that a business could come into come into Louisiana and say, we want our own charter school. We want to, you know, emphasize, you know, like on the STEM, you know, subjects, and be able to, you know, where it's open to everyone. Not, you know, not they can't
Right.
pick and choose who they, you know. We have open, you know, open enrollment.
But they'll fund it.
But they're, you know, they're funded. Yeah, right now, I don't know. Well, I know we have such a need for workforce development. We have $100 billion worth of new construction coming into this state, and we're going to need like 84,000, you know, skilled career.
And we don't have them.
And we don't have them. You know, so I mean, we have to do the whole gamut. You know, yeah, we need the STEM, but we need to be able to have the career, you know, education. And I tell you, some of these career jobs, the welders, the tech, you know, the factory, you know, technicians, the instrument. You know, they are well-paying jobs. In fact, a lot of times they're higher-paying jobs than the 4-year degree programs.
That's right. And so you mentioned that you recognize the value of competition and choice. It gives choice, freedom to the parents to choose where their kid goes to school. The money that's allocated per kid by the state and local governments follows the kid to those schools.
That's exactly. You know, that's you know, student-based budgeting, where the dollars, you know, follow the kids. And
so what that results in, as I understand it, confirm it for me, is that obviously a badly performing school is not going to get so many folks coming there. The high-quality schools, everybody's going to start going there. This guy's going to drop out of the competition, and hopefully it just keeps improving.
Absolutely. It's kind of like the restaurant. You know, the bad restaurants go out of business, the good ones people go to. You know?
Okay,
yeah,
excellent.
And that's the way the free market system is supposed to work.
And so that's a #1 tenet for you as far as what you would like to accomplish and continue to move towards in the Louisiana legislature.
And they've done a great, they're working towards that path.
What do you think of Common Core?
Common Core, you know, it depends on how you define it. I mean, I'm 100% opposed to federal government dictating
top down, one size fits all thing.
Unfunded, you know, mandates to the state. But we do need to be able to compete in the world. You know, we need to have the Louisiana diploma mean something. We need teacher accountability. We need autonomy of schools. You know, so we need to continue going down the path.
But we can accomplish that at the state level,
at the state
correct?
level, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And so we don't need the federal government to tell Louisiana what it needs to do. We know what the standards are, and we can.
Before you and I started, you know, we were talking about the Department of Education, which is a new entity, goes back to Jimmy Carter. Education outcomes have been going down in this country. I mean, so when the federal government got involved in education,
we're down the toilet.
Down the toilet, yes, sir.
Pretty much says it all. And so, with that observation, I assume that you're a big believer in maximum power to the states and individuals, and not the federal government.
Yes, absolutely. You know,
talk about the EPA.
You know, one thing that I did on the council is they're talking about raising the ozone standards for Baton Rouge. We have all this great industry that are coming to Baton Rouge, and the EPA could, if they would raise the standards, totally wipe, and it would make these companies not leave Louisiana and go to Texas. It leaves Louisiana and goes overseas, goes to another country. So we did a resolution that's you know,
opposed it.
Opposed.
All right, we'll continue this on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines. My guest, Buddy Amoroso. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where we're going to talk about you and the law. You know, a law is nothing but an exercise of power over you, people, places, or things. But where does that power come from? Where does the government get that power? And how is that power exercised? And do you play a role at all? That's what you need to know. So join us on the next Legal Lines, where knowledge is power. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. I'm very pleased to have on the show for the first time Buddy Amoroso. He is a Metro Councilman. He's running for the Louisiana House as a representative. Buddy, let's talk about the other planks. You talked about education and how important that was for you. You've also mentioned the importance of the economic development of the state.
There's some really exciting things going on in Louisiana right now with industries coming. Baton Rouge today, we just had a company, it's a smaller company, about 20 to 30 employees, relocating from Seattle to Baton Rouge called Qualitix, which is a quality assurance company.
Okay, excellent.
In the high-tech industry. You know, Baton Rouge, we had Electronic Arts, EA Arts come here.
Right.
Then we were able to get IBM to Baton Rouge. So we're expanding our pie. Then we had a company called Sixus, which is a company from India that wanted to relocate to the United States. Of all 50 states, chose Baton Rouge. So now we're getting the service companies that are coming in, like this quality assurance company that we had the groundbreaking today.
So expanding the financial foundation for the city and the state.
Yeah, and to me, you know, economic development is so important. And again, you know, I'm a granddaddy. I have kids here. I want my kids to be able to get good quality jobs in the Baton Rouge or Louisiana region. I don't want them to have to go to Texas and Houston and Austin, or even worse than that, to go overseas. So that's why, to me, I think, you know, economic development, you know, it's the government helping, you know, to bring these type of companies here. Louisiana, you know, we have to diversify our economy. We cannot just be totally 100% dependent upon the energy
the oil
sector,
and gas.
Oil and gas. You know,
even though we love them, we're glad they're here.
We love them, and
the price of oil's gone down almost 50% in the last few months.
Right, right. So I mean, we all remember, you know, what happened back in the '80s.
That's right.
You know, and hope we won't get there. You know. Now with the diversification, even in the chemical, you know, side, where the price of gas going down helps the, you know, the chemical industry. So it becomes that you cannot just have one segment of the economy. You have to have a more broad-based economy.
And Governor Jindal obviously has done a wonderful job bringing in folks, and the Baton Rouge city has also brought in, the parish has brought in a lot of folks.
We're working with
so you keep pushing that.
With the Jindal administration has done a great job with economic development and job force, you know, development. There's some, you know, hopefully the future of Louisiana looks bright. And I always tell people, you know, only the politicians can screw it up, and that's another reason why. You know, we've done it before in the past. You know, I mean,
you're right.
You know, so you know, I mean, so this is what we have to have, a good, you know, business foundation, so we can have a diverse, you know, economy.
Let's talk about the infrastructure plank of kind of your running platform. Talk to me about that.
Well, have you ever been on I-12
Yep.
8 o'clock in the morning trying
Unfortunately.
to get... you know,
pretty much any street at certain times.
Yeah, you know, the unfortunate thing that has happened is that we have taken money from the Transportation Trust Fund and funded other areas of the state budget, you know, to this. I think we have like 12 to $15 billion worth of infrastructure needs. That's bridges, roads. Baton Rouge is a prime example of it. You know, we look at things like the Piku interchange. The Piku interchange will be vital for southeast Baton Rouge. It really opens up the entire southern part of the parish. It creates really a southern loop, you know, Baton Rouge. It takes some of the pressure off the interstate.
Interesting. So two purposes. One is to further development of the real estate and business growth and such. And it also renders folks more productive, because instead of sitting in their car, they're sitting in, you know, at their job.
That was a nice thing. You know, I live in Lake Sherwood Acres. Someone who lives in my subdivision now, if they work at LSU, is basically dependent to go on the interstate. That's more traffic on the interstate. Well, with the Piku interchange, you'll be able to go from Stumberg all the way to Piku, all the way right side into campus. Even downtown, you can, you know, go to that route. So it begins to take pressure off the interstate.
Got it.
And those are the type. I don't think we'll ever see the big, you know, loop around Baton Rouge. I think that time has passed. I think I heard one time was almost $10 million project.
Let's talk about the budget, because of the huge drop in oil, and from what I'm reading, we've got millions and hundreds of millions of dollars.
Billions.
That we have a deficit. I mean, we've just got a real problem. How would you deal with that?
Well, first of all, you know, we have to go to, you know, we cannot be dependent upon, you know, one-time money for long-term needs. So that has to be the fundamental basis of budgeting decisions. That when this money dries up, we cannot be dependent upon even our royalties. I'd like to see royalties used really just for infrastructure, for things that will have a lasting effect for for Louisiana.
So where would you get the money?
Well, there again, I think we're going to have to look at the budget. We're going to have to maybe even look at some of the incentives that we are giving.
So you would cut these expenditures instead of raising taxes?
There again, to me, I think raising taxes is absolutely the last alternative. Unfortunately, we're in a situation now that the only discriminate areas of the budget is higher education or health care.
Because all the monies, for the most part, a huge portion of the monies collected by the state are dedicated to projects and expenditures already. So there's limited discretionary income that they can say, I'm going to cut here. And so, and I forgot what it is, but it's really not a large, maybe 20%.
But I tell you what, we're having a special election for District 66, which I'm running in.
And that election is when?
That election is February 21st.
And you also got the endorsement, I believe, of EastPac, Lobby, the business.
And we've had some great, the Louisiana Board of Realtors, the Baton Rouge Board of Realtors, State Farm, a lot of the business community.
And currently you're unopposed, right?
Well, there's a lot of names are being mentioned. I doubt I will be unopposed.
Okay, and you also, as I understand it, were unopposed at the Metro Council.
Exactly.
It'd be nice for that tradition to continue.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Metro Council. As I understand it, the mayor has brought forth, I think for the 4th time, an infrastructure package to try and address some of the concerns that you were mentioning here, traffic and sewer and et cetera. What's your analysis of that?
Well, unfortunately, the mayor has chose to have a tax election on May 2nd. Just going back to my fundamental core beliefs about low voter turnout, special elections, I will be voting. I will be opposed to. I'll be voting against it. I'm probably be in the minority. I probably will pass, with it. But I'm just so opposed to these elections that are on these low voter turnout days. Now, the actual election will be for a new parish jail, a juvenile center, a DA's office, and also for the public safety complex at the old Women's Hospital. So it's just limited to that. There's no roads in it there,
Initially, I recall it seems like it was around $1 billion, and now we're down to maybe a little bit above 300 million.
350.
And it would be funded with a tax, I assume.
It will be what I can appreciate, it will be a property tax and also like I think it's a 1/4%, sales tax.
And is it a 30-year type tax where they're going out and bonding it?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so long-term financing.
It is very much a long-term.
And a long-term tax obligation. All right.
And the thing is, when we look at East Baton Rouge, and again, it goes back to what we were saying about the state. It's about dedicated funds. Baton Rouge has been very generous to, like the library board, has been very generous to Breck. And we're going to have to look and to be able to, we can only afford so much.
Buddy, thank you so much. Appreciate you being on the show.
Absolutely.
Pleasure having you. This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines. My guest, Buddy Amoroso, running for the Louisiana House of Reps. Thank you for being with us.